Welcome to Shaped by Faith with your host, Theresa Rowe. To find out more about Shaped by Faith and Theresa Rowe, please visit shapedbyfaith.com or visit the YouTube channel, Facebook, or Instagram. And now, here is Theresa Rowe.
Welcome to Shaped by Faith. We shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. I have a very special guest on Shaped by Faith today. His name is Harry Pedigo, and he is doing a lot for the kingdom of God. Harry, I'm going to go ahead and read your bio. It's been a few years since you've been on Shaped by Faith, so I'm glad we reconnected. So Harry Pedigo is a leader, he's a father, and he's a friend to many people. And he's recently engaged. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And most importantly, he's a believer in Christ. And Harry says he has a privilege of being the executive director of both Daniel Pitino and St. Benedict Shelters. He says that he's a person who's lived with homelessness and he has experience with homelessness, a person in recovery. He's a Kentucky colonel. He's founder of Recovery and Restoration at Bridgepointe Church, a founder-owner of Stepping Out Recovery Homes, and holds a master's degree in social work. Harry says that he enjoys helping others, serving his community, and serving God. He goes on to say, without God, I'm nothing, and he is why I am who I am. So I love that. So welcome to Shaped by Faith, Harry.
Thank you for having me, Theresa.
Absolutely. Okay, so just to give our listeners a background of who you are, where you came from, what you were doing before becoming directors of both St. Benedict's and Daniel Pitino Shelter. Why don't you give us some background?
Sure, absolutely. So everything you just read was not me 14 years ago, prior to me coming here. You know, I grew up in a small town, Boston, Kentucky. Was raised from the age of 5 out of that area. Prior to that, we were in Louisville, and I guess the whole idea was to get us in a safe place. But in the country, things are a little bit different, so it wasn't necessarily safe for us. So we grew up with a whole lot of dysfunction. I mean, everything from people fighting in our front yards to seeing people drunk and sleeping on our couch to all the neighborhood kids coming in and eating. Like, these are some of the things that I remember. And, you know, one thing led to another, and I get into drugs and alcohol, and then I'm dropping out of school at the age of 16. And from there, I just kind of went downhill. You know, I started experiencing homelessness for the next 13 years, sleeping on couches, a friend's couch, in a car, wherever I could go, that's where I was going to lay. And I would justify by saying, I'm living my best life and I'm doing what I want to do and partying, but it was just a delusion that I was in. And, you know, this whole time too, like growing up, like I was never really a believer in anything. I would have told you I was an atheist or an agnostic. But God surely as he does, he revealed himself to me in a lot of different ways. I've seen many burning bushes, and I came to Owensboro in 2011 and my life radically changed. So here I am today.
Yeah, God has done a lot in your life, like he has in all of our lives. I love the transformation that he does in us. But the thing is, we have to be obedient to him and his calling and be willing to make changes and sacrifices. And you've done that. So at what point in your life did you get serious about, you know, Lord, here I am, use me, help me? At what point were you at in your life?
Well, I was 29 years old, and I was looking at, I had another case that I was going to court over, and I thought, you know, at this point, I'm just tired of getting in trouble, and I'm just tired of the same old stuff. I'd done been to treatment 6 different times, and still I was still a slave to a substance, and that's what I told the judge. It's like, you know, lock me up. That was my solution, because I knew it kept me from me and from my addictions and the things that I struggled with at that time. And you know, that's kind of where I found peace. And I told him, you know, if I get out of jail, I'm going to do the same stuff, because I don't know how to stay stopped. And from that moment, he said, you know, we're going to send you to Owensboro Regional Recovery. And I ended up here like 2 weeks after that. I wasn't really bought into the change, but as I was there, you know, God kind of showed me like everything I had been through was not in vain. Like it was all leading me somewhere. I just didn't know where it was going to be. And so that's kind of where it was for me. I mean, when I was in the rock bottom, I found comfort there. Obviously, you can't go any further down. And I
Right.
found comfort in that for years. And so, it's just a whole lot of tired of being the same, tired of not being a father, tired of not being respected, tired of not having any self-love for myself, and finally wanting to live. So
Mm.
2011 is when it began.
So was that when you found yourself also at St. Benedict's? I know you went through Owensboro Regional Recovery, but I mean, you're the director now of St. Benedict's and Daniel Pitino Shelter, which praise God. So you found yourself where you're at right now, right? But on the other side of things.
Yeah, it's funny because I'd been at Owensboro Regional Recovery, I don't know, like 10 months. And I kept getting asked to come down to St. Ben's and just volunteer. And I was like, I don't want to hang out with a bunch of homeless guys. And
Oh my goodness.
I know, but that's like every other person out here.
Yeah.
I had that same stigma in my mind that they're just homeless guys. They should get a job, and I'm not going down there volunteering my time.
Mm.
But one day I did, and I remember walking through the door, and I remember hearing Ezekiel, I think it's 36:26, where he says he'll remove the heart of stone and replace it with a heart of flesh.
Mm.
And I heard, here you are. And I fell in love with those guys from that moment. I mean, I just did. I knew right then I was them, and I'd just been in denial about it for 13 years. And
Mhm.
from there, that shaped everything for me. So, like, that's why I tell people, if you come through the doors of St. Ben's, whether it's as a client, a volunteer, a donor, your life's going to be radically touched in some way, because mine was. From
Mhm.
all that prompted going back to school with a GED. So I went back to college, and led into 4 different degrees, and all of it to serve God's people.
You became the director of St. Benedict's. When did that happen?
Yeah, so I was there from 2013 to 2015, and 2015 is when I took over as the executive director, and did that for years while I was going to school. It was very difficult to work a full-time job and be a full-time student and a full-time dad and all that, but I did.
Hmm.
God gave me that strength.
He does, and he sustains us through everything. So when did you realize your purpose in life? Did you realize it before you stepped into being a director, that your purpose was to serve God and also serve others? Did you realize that you were in your purpose?
No, no, I didn't. I knew I enjoyed it, and
Hmm.
it wasn't until I went on Emmaus Walk 111 that really grabbed me. And I knew, like, before that, I guess I just had this big conception that God's just blessed me with something I
Hmm.
like doing.
Right.
But from the Emmaus Walk, I knew, like, because I would see where in times that I was trying to commit suicide, or in the suicides that I witnessed, because I've been through a lot of that stuff in my life, and I knew that none of that stuff was in vain. Like, so I think it was right after that is when I basically conceded to myself that, this is a calling for me. God's put me right where he wants me, even though it's a scary thing to do, to jump into an executive director role. I
Right.
thought, I don't know that I can do it. Um, but God said, yeah, you can. So I knew right then I was where I was supposed to be, and I was just going to continue to build on what God wanted me to build on for his glory and for his people.
Absolutely. God uses everything in our past, as you already know this, Harry. I'm preaching to the choir, but God uses our good, bad, and ugly for his purposes, but especially our mistakes and our ugliness. He will turn it around for our good as we share with others what God has done for us in our lives. And we should all be speaking to that, like, look what God has done. How awesome is our God? And look what he's done with you, Harry. And look what he's done with me. And look what he's done with so many people out there. And that's all God's doing. But it's like, yes, Lord, I want to be different. This isn't working. Let's take a real quick break. We'll be right back with more Shaped by Faith. So everyone stay tuned. Welcome back to Shaped by Faith. We shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. Harry Pedigo is my guest today, and he is the executive director of Daniel Pitino and St. Benedict Shelters in Owensboro, Kentucky. Harry, it seems like there's been an increase in homeless homelessness in our community that we can visually see? And what about the homeless population that you serve? Has there been an increase, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, so there's definitely been an increase. Us doing what we do, we also have outreach. So like we do get out and work with individuals that are unhoused or on the streets. I think there's a lot of different things that contribute to that. At least what we've noticed, some of the drivers that we've noticed are the surrounding counties do not have shelters. So that's a driving factor for individuals to seek out where the closest shelter is, right? So that
Mhm.
drives our numbers up. And then, and the next two are very, I guess, controversial, and some would argue. But we have some of the best treatment centers in town, right? So even those individuals, people seek out treatment from all over the state, right? And when you work in that area and only 20% of them succeed, the other 80% are leaving or being asked to leave. And then some of them find themselves stuck here, right? And then you have also the hospital is a regional hospital serving a lot more counties in the grad area. And anytime somebody's encountered being homeless on the streets in those counties, they treat it as a healthcare concern, right? Is the guy in his right mind? Is
Mhm.
he under the influence? So the only thing they can do, since there's not a shelter to take him to, is bring him to the emergency room to be checked out, make sure that he's okay. Unfortunately, they don't wait for them to take them back. They typically are then discharged, and the hospital does a good job at trying to find a place for them to go, like a shelter. But
Mhm.
those are driving factors, right? And then the other driving factor is the economy is crazy. Cost of living is crazy right now. So people are literally having to decide, okay, do we feed our family or do we pay our electric bill? I mean, Teresa, you can go to Kroger and get 10 items from Kroger and it's $100.
I know.
So, I spend $300 every other week on a family of four, but we're seeing families of 5, 6, and 7 needing shelter. So, it just things are changing with the homeless population. The other thing too is it's more of an aging group now. So we're seeing a lot more senior citizens that refuse to be in nursing facilities, or they've been asked to leave from nursing facilities because they're uncooperative or whatever the reason may be. And so we're seeing a lot more people with physical health conditions and mental health conditions. Of course, substance abuse is up there. So you do have a lot of different driving factors to that,
Mhm.
right?
So
So
how many beds do you have at your facility between the both Pitino and St. Benedict's?
64 at St. Ben's, and then 65 here at Pitino Shelter. And this is another one, right, that drives these numbers up. So a lot of seeing individuals out that are homeless, the shelters are full, right? So there's nowhere for them to go if somebody like me or you experience homelessness today, we can't get in a shelter right now. So we'll have to use our funds until it runs out. And people might say, well, why not build a bigger shelter? That's not, I need housing. If I had housing for these people to go to, I've got 20 at any shelter at any given time ready for housing. There's no affordable housing out here. Kentucky
Mhm.
Housing recently did their gap analysis saying that we're about 3,000 units short in Owensboro, Davis County. So that's also contributing to seeing more people on the streets. So, yeah,
That's a lot of factors. All right, Harry, what you said people are 20 here, 20 there are ready to move into housing. Do they have jobs? Do you help them, gear them in that direction? What do you guys do in both
absolutely.
places?
Absolutely. So from the moment they check into either shelter, we're putting a case manager on them. They're going to life skills, and life skills are hearing everything from learning how to financially manage their money to cleaning up their credit to learning how to apply for a homeowner's loan, or they may be learning environmental hygiene, personal hygiene, employment opportunities, how to fill out a resume, how to do a job interview. So yes, they're getting these things. A lot of it when it comes to the jobs, we have a list of people that hire
Mhm.
felons, and we have a list of people that are second chance agencies that will hire them. So we do our best to try to get them in that direction.
Okay. All right. So another thing you offer, I mean, obviously anyone can walk in, right? But you're, according to you, the shelters are full right now.
Yes.
So what is someone supposed to do?
That's a very good question. Well, you know, if an individual's coming to us and we're turning them away, we're trying to provide them with some sort of solution. And a lot of times we have to reach out to other areas to see if there's shelters around. Now, with winter coming up, we have an opportunity to help put people temporarily in a hotel till we get a bed open.
Mhm.
Relatively, these waiting lists move pretty quick. So a lot of times the wait may only be a week or two, but unfortunately, there's not a quick solution to that. If the shelters are full and we're waiting on housing, it's just a matter of time. So we try to pull other resources together and buy them some time until we can get them in the shelter.
Okay. What about health challenges? I mean, certainly, I mean, everyone has their own dealings with health challenges, just living in your own home and having shelter, we can have health challenges. So what do they do if they're at one of the shelters and they've got some major health challenge? How's that taken care of?
Well, two different ways. If we assess and determine that he or she requires a level of care medically that we cannot provide, we do not, we try to find them a medical place that is sufficient for their need.
Hmm.
Because we're not a medical facility and we can't meet all the medical needs of some people, right? It
Right.
would be neglectful on our part to take them in knowing that they need some level of medical care. Now, recently we opened Audubon area put a community care clinic here at the Pitino shelter. So we're hoping having that on site, we can do a few things: save taxpayers on first responders calls, lower the 911 calls, and help these individuals get established with a primary care physician. So, you know, health disparities are big when it comes with the homeless population. Everything from you know, disease and illness to colds and flus to having splinters in their fingers. I mean, we see it all.
Hmm. I'm sure you've had your share of, watching the health challenges. Do you have any story without naming any names or saying any particulars? Like, do you have a story that you want to share about something that was serious that happened to an individual and they needed health care?
Well, I can not anything particular that stands out recently.
Hmm.
A lot of times well, I'll tell you what, there was one time where we had somebody came to us to the front desk and said, "Hey, I think somebody needs help. They're in the bathroom." Okay, so we went in, all we see is legs hanging out under the bathroom door. So we call for a welfare check because we're not getting a response, and come to find out, this person was not staying with us, but he had come in to use the day shelter part, and he had overdosed, either prior to coming there or whatever. And so because we have such great first responders, I mean, they were able to Narcan him and get him back to where he needed to be. And then
Hmm.
we was able to help get him into treatment later on down the road. So it worked out great for him in that particular setting. I mean, if he'd have done it outside or away from us, who knows if he would even be here.
Right. Okay, so let me ask you this here. You see people more and more in our smaller community with signs on corners, cardboard sign, and it tugs at your heart. Okay, so what should we do? Should we stop and give them money, give them food? What should we do?
I think people always, I think there's a lot of them that agree with me on this and a lot of them that say, no, they don't need to be doing it. But you know, you do have professional panhandlers out there. That's not a secret. It's some people, it's a very lucrative thing if that's what you're doing.
Mhm.
I had a priest ask me that exact same question one day. He said, "Harry, what do I do? Do I give them money or do I tell them to come to St. Ben's?" I said, "Well, first of all, you do whatever it is God's telling you to do. I don't want to be involved in telling you to do something that God's telling you to do that's complete opposite." So I said, if you feel that God's telling you to give, then give. But always try to point them toward where they can get either more meals or a shelter, because typically if they're holding a sign, it says on there what their need is. So I
Right.
always try to meet the need. If it's I'm hungry, I say, "Hey, let me get you something to eat," and then come down to Pitino 7 days a week. We serve lunch, so there's no reason you should ever go hungry. And then we provide, you know, like another hot meal list of other places in town that serve hot meals. So, you know, I think it's just really educating yourself on the resources that are available, and being able to point them to a need is probably way more beneficial than handing them $2.
Yeah, that's great advice. Why don't you go ahead and share with us the services you offer in both of the shelters and maybe the differences between them?
Sure. So I'll start with St. Benedict's. St. Benedict's is a men's shelter. St. Benedict's has been here since 2005. And we are a men's overnight, I mean, not overnight, emergency shelter, which means that basically the only thing you need to get in is be a male over the age of 18. You don't have to have an ID. We're going to take you if we have vacancy, we're going to take you. We're going to provide case management. We're going to provide shower services, a warm bed, warm meals, life skills classes. We're going to work on a housing plan. So all those things are kind of wrapped up in St. Ben's. And then there's other options with that as well. We have a transitional living program that individuals can move into, which is literally it gives them about 2 years of time to have a little bit of responsibility, but work towards self-sufficiency. And then when you get into the Daniel Pitino shelter, we've been around since 1994. We're a family shelter and a single women's shelter. So what that means, on any night, we have about 30 single women here, and on one side of the building, and the other side, we have everything from couples to mother, father, and child, to a single father with a child and a single mother with a child. We just do not take single men here at the Pitino shelter. Here they have access, and both shelters and other shelters too come to the Pitino shelter to access our housing programs. Those programs are state funded programs with housing vouchers. So we have a lot of different agencies that send their clients here for that. We still provide them with a level of care of case management and medication assistance. They have to go to life skills classes. They have to contribute around the shelter. A lot of both the shelters are ran, and a lot of respects are ran by the clients. They need to be involved in this process. A lot of the services that we have has came from listening to the clients. So we try to do that. The Pitino shelter is also the only 7-day-a-week soup kitchen in the city. So that means every day at 11 o'clock, we're providing a hot meal to the community that is experiencing homelessness, or maybe they're food insecure, and they just live in the area. Regardless of what that is, we provide that meal to them.
Okay, let's talk about volunteers. Do you need volunteers? And if you do, and you currently have volunteers, what are some of the responsibilities, or what would they be doing?
Yeah, so both shelters always need volunteers when it comes to serving meals, when it comes to sitting at the front office to help them with medication, or assisting them with assigning them a chore. We always have areas needed volunteers in the food pantries and the clothing closets. And then we also need volunteer groups. So a small group or a church group or a company, those we typically like to put them on a particular day of the month to serve a meal. But we also do a lot of different things. Like we have students coming in from one of the local schools. It's going to help get the food pantry straightened out, and some other things around the shelter.
What are your biggest needs? Like if someone wants to donate, of course, financially, but let's say they also want to give, they want to go purchase something and bring it. What's your biggest needs that you have right now?
Winter's coming up, so the biggest needs right now are hats and gloves, socks, hygiene products. Money will always be a need because
Right.
none of us are really, even when you hear funded by the government, it does not mean it's covering our light bill. It means they're funding a particular program. And then cereals and coffees and oatmeals are always needed as well too, for breakfast items. So those are really our biggest needs at this moment. And we have 2 food team spots that are open at both shelters. So we're looking for a group that wants to come in, provide a meal to serve to our clients.
So who do they contact? Do they directly contact you?
When they can, the best way is just go onto our website. So it'll either be stbenedictsowensboro.org or pitinoshelter.org. And they can inquire that way. If they want to come in, I would suggest just come by and ask for a tour. Let us give you a tour. I want you to see it and feel it, smell it, everything. Like it will mean more if you come by, let me give you a tour. So, and so they can come by either facility. We're 2 blocks away from each other. So we can give a tour of both facilities in less than 30 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. So, Harry, looking back where you were once, where you are now, what God has done in your life and through you, how has your faith increased and where are you at now?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. The last few years have been pretty hard on me with surgeries and going through a divorce. And, I experienced a moment of darkness. I felt like I'd cut myself off from God. I don't feel like he abandoned me or anything. I feel like I just kind of removed myself. And then over the last 3 years, it's been really just me and him trying to get back to new things and new ways. So, I pray when I wake up, I pray when I go to bed. Um, I trust that in everything I do, God's going to prevail. I don't worry today. I used to worry about stuff. I just don't. I don't have to worry, right? Because God's already got it figured out.
That's right. God is
So
so faithful.
I would say my faith today is exactly where it needs to be. I still want to pursue him and I still want to bring him into my life. I don't ever want to feel that darkness I felt a few years back.
Hmm. But the good news is you looked up and you didn't stay down. I think all of us will go through those low places or dark times, but the good news is when you look up, God's right there giving you a hand
right.
up. So, Harry, thank you so much for what you do for our community and the homeless population and how you pour into the lives of so many people.
Well, I appreciate Teresa. Like you read on my bio, I look at it as a privilege to do this.
Mhm.
So, I didn't ask for this. I didn't go looking for this type of work. I didn't sign up for it. It just worked out the way God wanted me here. And so I don't take that for granted. I love these people.
Yeah.
They're my people.
You can tell. Well, thank you, Harry. And thank you for listening. I'm Theresa Rowe. Everyone have a blessed day. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Shaped by Faith with Theresa Rowe. Remember to visit shapebyfaith.com to find out more about workouts, the TV show, podcasts, blogs, Shaped by Faith products, and much more.